promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Abidjan. Good afternoon and many thanks to staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio. Broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. PDCI leader Tijan Cham steps down ahead of October 2025 presidential election. Arrest and attack of opposition leaders in Mali raise concerns amid political clampdown.
It is deeply troubling to learn of this. The manner in which people are being abducted is unacceptable. We call on authorities to release our friend and colleague so he can return to his family. This country has always stood for justice and the rule of law.
3 journalists arrested in Niger over alleged misinformation on intelligence ties.
Since Saturday, the journalists have been held in police custody at the Agadez City Hall, where each was subjected to another round of questioning. According to available information, the questions remain unchanged.
Unidentified men set at least 12 houses ablaze in Ghana's Upper East in what is suspected to be a spillover of Boko conflict. Liberia's House Speaker set to step down today amid prolonged legislative crisis. Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
My name is Sankule Janko, and many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. We begin the bulletin in Cote d'Ivoire, where Tijan Cham has officially stepped down as president of the Democratic Party of Cote d'Ivoire, the PDCI RDA. An announcement was made public yesterday, May 11, in a statement from the party's interim president, Ernest Nkumambobio. The legal battle surrounding Cham's nationality has cast serious doubt over his eligibility as the candidate. The Ivorian constitution mandates that any presidential contender must hold exclusively Ivorian nationality, no exceptions. Well, Abraham Parker has more in this report.
The resignation follows an escalating legal dispute over Tijan Cham's Ivorian nationality, a critical issue that directly affects his eligibility to run in the upcoming October 2025 presidential race. The legal battle centers around Article 48 of the Ivorian Nationality Code, which states that an Ivorian citizen automatically loses their nationality if they voluntarily acquire another. Chan, who became a French citizen back in 1987, officially renounced his French nationality on March 19th of this year, but the courts are not convinced. On April 22nd, the Court of First Instance in Abidjan suspended Tijan Chan's application for a nationality certificate, citing challenges led by Bernard Z. Kokora, a prominent figure in the ruling RHDP party. Chan had only just been nominated as the PDC's presidential candidate on April 16th during a party convention already stemmed by internal tensions. Facing mounting pressure and legal uncertainty, he ultimately chose to step aside. In line with the PDC's internal rules, Ernest Nkumambobio, the party's oldest vice president, has now taken the helm in an interim capacity. In his address, Mobio urged the party members to remain calm and united, stressing the importance of discipline and collective resilience during what he called a difficult moment. This dramatic turn of events throws one of Africa's main opposition parties into uncertainty with potential implications for the broader political landscape as the countdown to the October election continues.
Abraham Parker with that report. On bilateral relations, Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has arrived in Abidjan at the invitation of his Ivorian counterpart, President Alassane Ouattara, to take part in the Africa CEO Forum. This marks President Faye's second visit to Cote d'Ivoire since assuming office in March 2024. The Africa CEO Forum is an annual gathering that brings together political leaders, business executives, investors, and journalists to explore strategies for driving investment and strengthening the continent's private sector. This year's edition is themed, "Can a new public-private deal reshape the continent's future?" Let's head to the Sahel, particularly in Mali, where the whereabouts of Alassane Abba remains unknown several days after his disappearance. The Secretary General of the Convergence for the Development of Mali, CODEM party, was arrested at his home by armed masked men identifying themselves as gendarmes. Shortly afterward, Sheikh Omar Doumbia, a member of the pro-democracy movement, narrowly escaped a knife attack. These incidents come amid a government-imposed suspension of all political party and association activities. Augustine Colley reports.
Since the arrest of Alassane Abba on Thursday night, there has been no word from him. Witnesses say he was taken from his residence by masked armed men claiming to be gendarmes. Worried about his safety, family members and party officials say they have searched various police stations in the capital but without success. Ibrahima Sissoko, Vice President of CODEM, has condemned the arrest as unlawful and is demanding Abba's immediate release.
It is deeply troubling to learn of this. The manner in which people are being abducted is unacceptable. We call on authorities to release our friend and colleague so he can return to his family. This country has always stood for justice and the rule of law. Alassane Abba has done nothing wrong. He has not stolen, embezzled, or caused harm. He has simply stood up for his political beliefs.
Following Abba's disappearance, pressure on political figures appears to be intensifying. Sheikh Doumbia, a prominent member of the pro-democracy movement and signatory of the Manifesto for Democracy, narrowly escaped an attempted knife attack. According to his associates, several men in a double-four vehicle were spotted waiting near his home late Friday night. One of the men allegedly attempted to stab him, but friends intervened and managed to fend off the attackers. These troubling events are taking place as political parties and associations remain banned from holding activities under the current government's decree. Other young political activists, including El Bashir Cham and Tamega, have also reportedly been adopted or targeted in an attempted adoption. As of now, Malian authorities have made no official statement regarding the arrests or attacks.
Bamako correspondent Ali Cham's report presented to you by Augustine Colley. In Agadez, northern Niger, 3 journalists have been arrested twice in less than a week by security forces. The arrest stemmed from allegations that they broadcast false information regarding a supposed rupture in intelligence cooperation between Niger and its international partners, Russia and Turkey. The journalists, all from Sahara FM, part of the Air Info Media Group, were first detained between Wednesday and Thursday last week before being rearrested by an investigative judge. However, shortly after their release, the journalists were rearrested and placed in police custody. Sources close to the case report that no new evidence has emerged and the journalists were questioned again over the same news item. It's believed the case may now be transferred to a different judge, as the first judge had ordered their release. Abdurrahman Manzo, Director General of Air Info, confirmed the arrests and voiced concern about what he described as a worrying climate for press freedom. Here is Abdurrahman Manzo.
Since Saturday, the journalists have been held in police custody at the Agadez City Hall, where each was subjected to another round of questioning. It is likely they will be brought before a judge again to determine the next steps. However, according to available information, the questions remain unchanged, centered on the article reporting an alleged termination of security cooperation between Niger and Russia. With no new developments, the prosecution is expected to transfer the case to a different judge, as the initial judge had ordered their release.
Abdurrahman Manzo, Director General of Air Info.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
A harrowing new report from Human Rights Watch implicates Burkina Faso's military in a massacre over 130 Fulani civilians during a government-led operation earlier this year. The rights group is calling on the African Union and the UN Security Council to intervene. A major military operation in western Burkina Faso known as Operation Green Whirlwind 2 has left a trail of devastating and triggered fresh calls for justice. Human Rights Watch says government forces and allied militia massacred more than 130 ethnic Fulani civilians near the town of Zelenzo in March. The campaign, led by Burkinabe Special Forces and local militia known as the VDPs, reportedly used military helicopters and drones to coordinate attacks. Witnesses describe entire villages surrounded and civilians gunned down, many of them women, children, and elderly. The killings sparked relations by the Islamic group Jenin, which launched deadly assaults in neighboring Soror province, killing at least 100 more civilians accused of collaborating with the army. Survivors say they received warnings of the attacks but had no safe way to escape. Many families fled toward Mali only to be ambushed again. The government has denied targeting civilians, calling the operation a response to a terrorist threat. But video evidence and eyewitnesses' accounts tell a different story. Riot groups are now urging the African Union and UN Security Council to intervene, warning of escalating atrocities and the near eradication of Fulani communities in the region. Still in Burkina Faso, the President Ibrahim Traoré held a one-on-one meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin this Saturday on the sidelines of the 80th anniversary celebration of the victory in Great Patriotic War held on Russian soil. The two leaders discussed key issues including security, development, education, and culture. Notably, Russia committed to strengthening its cooperation with Burkina Faso in the fight against terrorism. Christopher Atichu reports.
This meeting was seen as crucial for deepening collaboration between Burkina Faso and Russia. President Putin opened the discussion by welcoming the growing ties between the two nations, though he acknowledged the current exchanges remain modest.
It is about restoring constitutional order in the face of radical groups in certain regions of Burkina Faso. Over the past 2 years, we've made significant progress through our collaboration in various areas. Notably, by the end of 2023, after more than 30 years of interruption, the Russian embassy in Ouagadougou was reopened.
Beyond security, President Putin also expressed interest in enhancing economic cooperation through increased trade between the two countries. On education, he announced an increase in scholarship quota for Burkinabe students, an initiative warmly welcomed by President Traoré.
This is crucial if we are to develop our own machinery, whether military equipment or industrial tools, because only by mastering these capacities can we truly progress within Africa. The war imposed on us today is, in our view, just another form of nazism. What is labeled as terrorism is actually imperialism. It is our land that those fighting us are interested in. So, ending this war, building a strong army, and kickstarting national development, that is the core of our struggle.
This high-level meeting between the two heads of state was held in conjunction with the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the end of the Great War.
Our Burkina Faso correspondent Martin Kaba's report presented by Christopher Atichu. In Ghana, unidentified individuals over the weekend set fire to at least 12 houses in Gomyoko's community in the Binduri district of the Upper East region. The attack appears linked to the ongoing chieftaincy tensions in nearby Boku, which have seen periodic flare-ups in surrounding areas. Security sources say this is the second such incident in just a few days, with over 20 houses now reduced to ashes. Residents had already fled Gomyoko weeks ago due to rising insecurity. With the area likely deserted, the attackers reportedly returned to destroy what was left. No suspects have been apprehended. Security expert Dr. Victor Doke says the violence is alarming, especially as mediation efforts led by the Asantene, Otumfor, Ositutu are still underway.
I think it sends a very, very worrying message in that you have a mediation going on and expecting that the two sides who are cooperating will send a message of peace and even various updates with regards to happenings in the mediation to the youths in the town there. But for this to happen, then it means all is not well. There is something that either sides, the youth from either side may not have agreed to. From what they have been updated with concerning the happenings in the mediation. And that is what would lead these youths steward go on such a tangent, but it's very, very, very worrying. How do we go on from here? Do we expect that the committee, the Ethnic Peace Committee, be roped in with regards to the mediations also, so that whilst the chief, the king, is dealing with leaders or the representatives of the two factions, the committee would also take upon itself and then extensively engage the grassroots, the youth at the grassroots level, with regards to calming down until the substantive recommendations are put in place and a roadmap is put in place for implementers to, roll out.
That was a Ghanaian, security expert there. You are reminded that you are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. PDCI leader Tijan Cham steps down ahead of October 2025 presidential election. Arrest and attack of opposition leaders in Mali raises concern amid political clampdown. 3 journalists arrested in Niger over alleged misinformation on intelligence ties. Unidentified men set at least 12 homes ablaze in the Ghana's Upper East in what is suspected to be a spillover of Boko conflict. And Liberia's House Speaker set to step down today amid prolonged legislative crisis. Till ahead in the news, we also have guests and sport news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Liberia's Speaker of the House, J. Fonati Kofa, is set to resign on Monday today, May 12, marking the end of a prolonged legislative crisis that began when a breakaway faction led by Richard Cohn seized control of the House. Although the Supreme Court ruled in April that the Cohn-led group's actions were unconstitutional and reaffirmed Kofa's legitimacy, resistance to enforcing the decision, particularly from the executive branch, has deepened concerns about the rule of law and governance. Kofa's resignation, announced to the Rule of Law Caucus, is seen as a strategic move to restore legislative stability and allow the House to reset through leadership elections. The Rule of Law Caucus, which had stood by Kofa, expressed sadness over the decision but admitted that his continued leadership had become unattainable due to the growing number of lawmakers unwilling to recognize his authority. The group condemned the executive's silence on the matter and emphasized the need for a fresh start to restore institutional credibility. Despite stepping down, Kofa, who was first elected Speaker in January 2024, will remain in the legislature as representative for Grand Cru County as efforts begin to rebuild trust and unity within the House. Now we return back to Ghana, where the Ghana Integrity Initiative advocates for the passage of the Conduct of Public Officers Bill to check corruption and promote accountability in public service. The Ghana Integrative said the local chapter of Transparency is advocating for the passage of Conduct of Public Bill to check corruption and promote accountability in the public service. This comes on the back of the recent launch of the Code of Conduct for political appointees by President Mahama to guide the appointees on how to act and manage his or her affairs in order to uphold the highest professional standards and avoid conflict of interest. WDR's Nadi Ditete reports.
Ghana's President John Mahama recently unveiled a new code of conduct aimed at enhancing transparency and accountability in governance. The code covers ministers, deputy ministers, presidential staffers, CEOs of state institutions, and other political appointees. It outlines core values such as integrity, honesty, and professionalism, and bars acts of opulence. Appointees are prohibited from buying state assets, using public funds for gifts or hampers, and must declare all business interests, especially those tied to government agencies. President Mahama warned that violations could attract sanctions, including dismissal.
We are here to protect the national interest, not to help ourselves to the national purse. The code sets out consequences for breach, public apology, from public apology to reprimand, to suspension, to resignation, or ultimately termination. Let me assure you that these sanctions are not cosmetic, they will be enforced, and I will not hesitate to act firmly and decisively no matter who is involved.
Reacting to the launch, the Ghana Integrity Initiative said while the code is welcome, it will be more binding if backed by the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. Mary Adda is Executive Director of the GII.
When we have instances where people do not declare those conflicts, it becomes difficult to take them on because our conflict of interest regime is not sanctionable or it is not punitive because it's not grounded in law.
Meanwhile, just days after the launch, the acting CEO of Gold Board, Sami Jimfi, has come under criticism for publicly gifting an undisclosed amount in dollars to a self-styled evangelist. The gesture has sparked concerns over opulence, with some citizens urging the president to act despite an apology by the officer in question. For WDR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Today's guest interview takes us to Côte d'Ivoire, where Tidjane Thiam has officially stepped down as president of the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire, the PDCI-RDA. The announcement was made public yesterday, May 11th, in a statement from the party's interim president, Anes Nkomo Mobio. The legal battle surrounding Thiam's nationality has cast serious doubt over his viability as a candidate. The Ivorian constitution mandates that any presidential contender must hold exclusively Ivorian nationality, no exceptions. Well, Nuruddin Oye-Ole is a political analyst and tells us more about the development and what it means for the PDCI party ahead of the elections.
Bien, effectivement, quand on écoute
Indeed, when we listen to his statements, he talks about judicial harassment on his subjects. And so we understand that it's in relation to the legal action brought by a PDCI activist named Yapo Valerie, whose decision was due on May 15. I think he's resigning in anticipation of this. You could say it's a kind of strategy because he stayed in court, because his activist accuses him of being president illegally, of not having respected the conditions required to be elected. So she has taken legal action against Tidjane Thiam's election procedure. And so today, perhaps it's his legal advisors, or rather, those advisors who surely said it would be a good idea to resign in the meantime, because as things stand, he's no longer the president of the PDCI. So perhaps the legal action won't make sense anymore. We are within the framework of the strategy. Will the decision Tidjane Thiam has just made be the best one legally? I'm not a legal expert, but we'll see what the courts decide. But overall, we have to understand that it's perhaps to counter both legal action and the judge's decision regarding the May 15 decision in Verlaine.
Par rapport à la décision du 15 mai à venir.
And Tidjane Thiam also speaks of a desire on the party of ruling camp, the RHDP, to sideline him and the main opposition figures. Is this really the case?
Est-ce vraiment le cas? Mais là, il faut rester carrément dans des supputations parce que...
Here, we have to stay squarely in the realm of speculations because the fact is that he's been sued by an activist and not just a PDCI activist. Even from the political bureau, someone who has a long career with the PDCI and who today courageously explained why she filed this lawsuit against its president. So, I think she's taking responsibility. So it's difficult, even if we can assume there are hints underneath, hints from the ruling party, but there are no facts to justify this harassment by the government. It was an activist who brought him to court, so it's difficult to say it openly like that.
Donc il est difficile de le dire de façon ouverte comme ça.
And what can we learn from Tidjane Thiam's record, almost 2 years after being appointed head of the PDCI?
Je pense que pour le moment, il faut dire que c'est un bilan quand même mitigé.
I think for the moment, it must be said that it's a mixed record. Already, to his credit, we can see a kind of remobilization of the grassroots because his candidacy saw hope, a possibility for the PDCI to return to power. So it creates, I think, psychologically a kind of mobilization. In practice, we can see that, well, There was no truly organized political bureau except on the eve of his candidacy as the PDCI candidate. We could say that's it. He held 2 rallies in the interior of the country, even though Côte d'Ivoire is vast. We are a few months away from the elections, so I think the mobilization work, the rallies to really fire up the troops, it's not really evident. Moreover, so far, perhaps it's a strategy. We haven't yet seen the outlines of Tijani Chiam's possible governance plan. I think that at the moment, in terms of communication, it's unclear. It is a bit muddled. But to his credit, we can still say that the PDCI activists have woken up and mobilized to conquer, to regain power. So, that's a bit of a generalization about the assessment made by President Tijani.
Pour la reconquête du pouvoir. Donc voilà un peu globalement ce qu'on peut dire sur ce bilan encore à mi-parcours du président Tijani.
Nuruddin Oye-Ole is a political analyst. And it's time for sports, and with me in the studio is Christopher Atichu. We were talking about the Clasico. It seems like Real Madrid is better than Barcelona, is 10 times better than Real Madrid this time. But first of all, let's talk about the African Cup of Nations under 20.
Very well. So we begin sports news this afternoon with some updates on the 2025 AFCON under 20 tournament ongoing in Egypt, where the technical study group at the ongoing Total Energies under 20 African Cup of Nations Egypt 2025 has named Ghana as that team that has demonstrated the highest standard of fair play during the group stages of the tournament. In a competition marked by a high stakes and intense competition, Ghana Black Satellites have stood out not just for their tactical discipline and defensive solidarity, but the team's exemplary conduct on the pitch. And the technical study group, tasked for analyzing team performances and promoting core football values, commended the Satellite for their sportsmanship, respect for opponents and officials, and commitment to clean, competitive football. That means that football is generally, gaining much more respect, and the discipline that the game ought to bring is also happening. But still, on the AFCON Under 20 tournament, Nigeria will clash against defending champions Senegal in the 2025 Under 20 African Cup of Nations today. And then the 22,000 capacity Suez Canal Stadium in Ismaila will be the venue where the Flying Eagles of Nigeria will take on or will look to grab the coveted semi-finals tickets happening today. And then let's jump all the way to over the weekend. As you rightly said, Barcelona says that if Real Madrid scores, we'll come back. Yes. And indeed they did that. That's what
Lamine Yamal said. He said even if Real Madrid scored 2, they won't be worried because they will still come back and beat them.
And indeed they did that because Barcelona actually thrashed Real Madrid 4-3, and that was a comeback as well.
It was a comeback.
And that ends sports with me.
Thank you very much, Christopher Atichu with sports there. Well, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Sekenjai for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram, WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is Well Body with Imo Edit. I am Sankule Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3